Good morning, boys and girls of the internet. Today is Monday, November 12th, 2018. Not quite sure what the vlog number is, but I believe it's like 317. I could be way off there. Anyway, happy Veterans Day to all those served. We respect and appreciate everything that all the veterans have ever done for this country. There's another sad note today. Famed legend comic book creator and writer and downright humanitarian Stan Lee, at 95 years old, passed away. Everybody kind of saw this was coming eventually. Well, death comes for us all. But he was getting up there in age. Let's not split hairs there. But the man, he kept going strong for many years, recently. This past year, yeah, you could kind of see that he had some struggles. He had a lot of unnecessary stress added to his life, unfortunately. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm sure that it didn't help. Stan Lee, he introduced us to so many worlds, so many universes. I saw a little comic today, depiction of Stan Lee kind of going into heaven, and a word bubble coming from heaven saying, you're not so bad at creating universes either, or something about that nature. He created Iron Man, the Hulk, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and of course Spider-Man, among many others. There's no question to his contributions to not only the comic book industry, what he did for the industry itself, but also what he did for the world. Yeah, he's a pop culture icon, but if you look at it, I don't think a single person who knows anything about comics, at all, just even the fleeting knowledge about comics, doesn't know who Stan Lee is. Yeah, there might be some, but I'm talking about across the world. His reach was that broad. And of course, in all the Marvel movies over, especially last going on 20 years now, since the first Spider-Man movie, back in 2001. He did his cameos in every single one, and so people really started to know him from that. So if you didn't read the comics, if you watched the movies, you saw him, and you eventually knew the significance of why he was in, just made a cameo in every single one. And he's always someone that was there for his fans. He generally loved and appreciated his fans. The man was 95, but he was still going to appearances, going to comic conventions. That can't be easy. But he did it for the fans. He knew that that people were coming out for him because they loved and appreciated him, and so he returned that, in kind, which he didn't have to do. There's so many other creators or industry icons that they might make an appearance once a year or so, but they aren't that intimately close with their fans. And that really says something about the man. I've always said that I'm not much of a celebrity person, as in, I don't fawn over celebrities or nothing. I don't really care to meet celebrities, for the most part. But among the few that I make exceptions for, like, I regret the loss of, Robin Williams. I'm sad that I never got to meet him. He was, an icon in himself. If we ever, it's a time's going to come, we're going to lose Morgan Freeman, probably one of the greatest actors of our time. He's getting up there in age. Stan Lee, who did so many appearances, across so many, all across the country. There's one recently, like last year, like last January, I believe. He was in Arizona. I could have gone to that. I could have met him. And if I have like one regret and one, that I didn't meet Stan Lee. That's kind of selfish for me to kind of say, but especially on Dave's passing. But it's just that to say that I didn't meet him, it's not a unique thing. Millions of people have met him, but I want to be included in that. But going back to what he's done for the world, his comics, ever since the beginning, were very much about, there's superheroes, but they're not flawless. That's what kind of, what fans of Marvel Comics like about Marvel Comics, is that they're not these, like, flawless, super beings that always do what's right, and is all just sunshine and rainbows, these people, his characters had lives, and they had responsibilities and faults, and they were human. Even though they're might have been a mutant or something from another planet, they still have their issues, and that grounded them, and that also made it so that you could relate with the characters, because who doesn't have a flaw-free life? Who doesn't have struggles? Who doesn't have some issues that they can relate to Peter Parker, or anybody from the Fantastic Four, or the X-Men, or the Hulk. Especially some of those characters that, they might be different in terms of, some of them have secret identities that they can just go about their daily lives and be normal. But there are many of his characters that, because they were so different, their whole lives in their comic world was to be an outcast and to be not accepted, and to show that they were fighting for acceptance and fighting for, they're not just fighting villains just because they're villains. They fought for acceptance in the world. Pretty much the whole world of quote unquote normal people was their villain. Especially the X-Men. I was pretty much the whole, but the X-Men were really bad. And so you can kind of draw parallels between that and a lot of marginalized people in the real world. Women, people of color, Native Americans, LGBT people, there's all kinds, trans people. they could probably look at that and go like, well, my whole life I've been, told that I was different, and I was shunned for it, or I was demeaned for it. And they could look at the X-Men and could see that they go through the same things that they're going through in their own lives, and they can relate to it, and they can see that it is worth fighting for. Whatever you are fighting for in your own life, to make your life better and to make the lives of other people around you better, that fight's worth it. And that, for decades, that's been pretty much Stan Lee's message that, there's what was that line from Spider-Man? Aunt May said, I believe there's a hero in all of us. And that's when you ground a character in reality like that, where you ground them to be relatable. It does show that anybody can be a hero, even in small, minute ways. We can do great things collectively if we all strive for the greater good. We can all be great. And not to mention, we all look at the superheroes and say, how great they were. But also, if you look at many of the villains, quote unquote villains of these comics, like Spider-Man's villains, like Dr. Octopus, and a lot of the villains in, like, say Fantastic Four. There's some, like, your typical trope of, I'm an evil villain, I'm doing evil just for evilness sake. Well, there was also characters and villains that you could also relate to. A lot of people say that the best villains that are written are villains that you can see their side of it, and that their side has a point, but the way they're going about their motive for whatever they're doing is just kind of the wrong way of going about it. But they say that every villain is a hero in their own mind. They think they're doing something for good, and when you write a villain like that in a comic book, and you can see it, like in many of Stan Lee's comics throughout the years has, that's a great villain. That's a great character, and that just kind of goes to show the power of comics and the power of the written word, the power of creating a universe, that is so like ours, but yet, it has a slight differences, that in the real world we have people who think they're doing right for the right reasons, but they're doing it from another perspective. They're they're in the wrong. They're doing it the wrong way, should I say. All in all, though, Stan Lee has, without a doubt, touched millions, if not billions, of lives. And the man is a legend. I mean, everybody kept saying that throughout the MCU movies, there's like these characters called the Watchers, in all the comics. They kind of showed them in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And they pretty much like watch over the whole universe. And there was like fan theories saying that Stan Lee is really a watcher. That's why he shows up in every movie. It's like just like a different character, different, just whatever side cameo he is. That he's really just a watcher, and he's like, making sure everything is going the way it's going, and just kind of watching how things progress. And that's really what he was doing. He, when Stan Lee was in a movie, that's him casting a seal of approval, That's him watching over a lot of his creations and giving that nod of approval, going, yep, it's a really great thing, and we can all look back at each one of his appearances and go, okay, yep, he's the Watcher, and he will live on forever, watching all his creations and all of our lives, you know, that are impacted by his stories and the stories that he helped bring to life. And for as long as these characters exist, he will live forever. You know, he'll live for, you know, as long as they're in our collective memories. So I won't say rest in peace. I'll say what is it? I'll say face forward, true believer. For Stan Lee is immortal, and he lives on in all of us as a legend, an icon, and truly just a great human being. The world's not going to be the same without him, but the world is infinitely better that he had brought his light to the world. So, with all that being said, everybody will miss the presence of Stan Lee. But take heart that he lived a good life, and I'm sure he lived it without any regrets, and he did love everybody, and everybody loved him. What greater thing can a man do in the world? We'll all miss you, Stan Lee. So, Excelsior.
I think whatever you do, you should do what you most want to do and what you're best at. Too many people don't really do what their heart's desire is, but they try to do something else because they think, well, it'll be easier to get a job or to make money. Yes, man. Hey, fellas. Hey, wait, where are you going? Hey, you were supposed to be my lift home. How will I get out of here? Hey, gee, I've got so many more stories to tell. Guys. Oh, gee.